नमस्कार। कृत्या कविता पाठ में आप सबका स्वागत है। वेलकम टू कृत्या पोएट्री रीडिंग. This is the sixth reading in the series of The Earth is Our Home, which we are organizing in collaboration with World Poetry Movement. And this is our yearly poetry movement, part of our yearly poetry movement. And this is the sixth session. We are going to have three more sessions. In every session, we try to invite the poets from different languages and different area of India. And this session, we are having quite senior and important young poets from the central, means from the Delhi. And the coordinator of this poetry reading is the Vijaya Singh. She herself is a very strong and very beautiful poet. So she will coordinate and she will invite. So I introduce to Vijaya Singh. Vijaya, स्वागत है आपका.
Namaskar, good evening, Sat Sri Akal, Adab to all our participants and viewers. I extend a very warm welcome to you from this corner of North India, Chandigarh, often described as the city beautiful, and a very warm welcome from Kritya and World Poetry Movement on this summer evening. Shakespeare has no sonnets that compare summer evenings in India to lovers fair and beautiful. But the scorching summer of North India has its own songs of beauty and joy in the form of trees laden with flowers, yellow, lavender, and red. Everywhere, wherever you may look, there are trees showering flowers, amaltas, gulmohar, Java ki Rani, blue jacaranda, vying with one another to bring relief from the merciless heat of these months. As William Blake once said, the tree which moves some to tears of joy is in the eyes of others only a green thing that stands in the way. Some see nature all ridicule and deformity, and some scarce see nature at all. But to the eyes of the man, and may I add woman, of imagination, nature is imagination itself. I wonder sometimes if dictators plant trees, water them, and nurture them. If they did, would they destroy with such wanton lust the lives of people and non humans? The earth is our home. Let us reclaim it from warmongers, from hate spreaders, extremists, and false leaders. World Poetry Movement and Kritya invite you all to make this month and the months to come a time for reading and listening to poems being read. Let this be our resistance to hate and venom. Let this be our way of spreading beauty and love and beauty all around us. The six poets reading for us today bring to us songs of different seasons and different moods. The first poet I wish to invite today for you is Manas Firak Bhattacharjee. Manas is a poet, writer, translator, and a political science scholar based in New Delhi. He's the author of the very well-received book, The Town Slowly Empties, on life and culture during lockdown. Looking for the Nation Towards Another Idea of India is another one of his books. And Ghalib's Tomb and Other Poems is his book of poems. His poems have appeared in World Literature Today, Rattle, The London Magazine, New Welsh Review, Ecumen, The Fortnightly Review, among others. And he has also taught lyric poetry and literary journalism in Ambedkar University. I invite you, Manas, to read your poems.
Thank you, Vijaya, for that warm introduction. And I'm indeed very happy to be here and sharing my poems with everyone. So a big warm welcome to everybody who have joined this poetry program. And I would also like to thank Kritya for this invitation and the Saxena. And I generally tend to read very topical political poems, but today I thought I'll take a break and read some other kind of poems that I've written. So I'm just sharing them with you. The first poem is titled A Simple Conversation on Delhi. She asked me, "How do you find Delhi?" "I'm still finding it," I said. "No wordplay, please," she said. "Be simple." "I shall try," I said. "Delhi is a hot grave in summer, a cold grave in winter." She said, "I didn't expect you to be so grave when I asked you to be simple." "Not my fault. Nothing's as famous in Delhi as its graves," I said. She nodded gravely. "Why do you stay here?" she asked, wondering. I said, "I feel close to the local parrots and pigeons that look after the graves and their migratory cousins, visiting them in colorful splendor every year." I added, "If birds love this place, so can I." "I wish I were a bird," she said.
Thank you. Very nice.
The next poem is titled Leaving an Old House. The house takes time to know you are leaving it. She finds you, it finds you emptying things bit by bit. It sees you sell the wine bottles, the old cupboard, give away the mattress where you dreamt, loved, tossed in illness. It learns something is wrong. Something slits the old silence of words that hangs in the air. The house takes time to know it's losing you. You give it long glances, hesitating to utter the truth, say goodbye. You wonder how to break the news of leaving to an old lover who received you without question. Each time you turn the key, expecting to be welcomed, to be set free. The house takes time to breathe in the fact you won't strip here again, won't sing the songs you heard together when it bathes in the rain, or share your secrets the time it pretends to sleep. Unlike an old lover, the house will let you go, not uttering a word.
Very nice.
The next poem is titled Our Schizophrenia. It's dedicated to Derek Walcott. It was written on his death on 17th March 2017. I, who have cursed the drunken officer of British rule, how choose between this Africa and the English tongue I love? Derek Walcott, Far Cry from Africa, 1962. From the black shores of St. Lucia, the sea is still blue for a black man. Poetry, like the sea, often arrives from other shores, and we catch it in our salad days with hook, line, and sinker. We bait poetry like fish. English gained from your curses, Derek. They are tempests from Caliban's heart. You speak of the tongue. It helps us swallow language without bone. And the heart, where language beats, has no bone either. We were warned not to fall in love with strangers or enemies, but their language enters our blood and the boat capsizes. It throws our defenses into the sea. Your words are seashells and weeds. They guard memory against invasion.
Very
The next
nice.
poem is titled Kamakya. It's titled Kamakya. It's about the Kamakya temple in Assam, where I grew up. So it's a sort of a dedicatory poem to my memories of the temple. Spiral roads take you up an occulted hill. The glacial river flows by. Your spiraling eyes are full of green water. You breathe a vertiginous air. Trees laden with monkeys greet you anciently. You hear bells tolling against bad spirits, sinisterly pious, welcoming scared gods. Priests, sheep vie for attention. Flowers are food, mantras, money. You remove your shoes, walk on old stones. They erase your presence, your footsteps with eyes of forgetting. Divinities on walls pose to store your path, tempt you, their bodies, counsels on stone, telling you, go break the stones in your body, become body, spread your organs, branch out like flowers, flower, branch, go, turn into verbs. Look beside you, goats are slaughtered, they wait, then executed by syllable. Their blood is our feast, we feast on death. A mother bleeds to birth us, blood is birth, death, regeneration. Kamakhya, dark spring, invites us below. We go with careful steps where it bleeds. Water. Blood is water. On our forehead of water, a mark of blood. It marks our fate. Fate marked by return to roots of vanished, deserted homes where we were born. We'll never die. We die elsewhere, without roots. We are homeless pigs, fixed in the pyre. In a fit, you see temple walls hoisted by pigeons. Why do birds die clinging to walls? What attracts feathers to stones? No one knows. Inside the Garbhagriha, dark rubbles, you go inside your head, deeper down, walled by fear, desire, touch the yoni, waiting since ages to remind you where you come from. Kamakhya, the orifice of origins, performs a ritual of blood's regenerative cycles. Man sacrifices his animal, for he lacks the blood of a woman. Goats are muted spectators of self-annihilation or of delirium, of what man cannot hold. In Kamakhya, stones bleed myths.
Beautiful.
The last poem is taken from an unpublished collection of poems that I wrote after my visit to Hampi. So this is just one poem from the collection. At the height of noon, we face the anonymous temple. I walk barefoot on the carpet of stones. I run up the temple and declare, I want to be its doorkeeper. Temple of the purest rain, this is where the light falls early. The clouds fall first. The temple is in waiting. It is a secluded eye, a lost eye of a god that has forgotten its name. It waits for our eyes. Here, stones and rocks speak to each other. Here, rocks were made into stones. Hampi is stone making. From a brittle earth of rocks, this temple lies on Hampi's forehead, Shiva's third eye, blinded by Parvati's hands. I remember Lalted, who, searching for him, found him inside her, then ran wildly out of herself. Mahadevi Akka, for whom coupling was eternal or nothing. A temple of nowhere, it is here. This place is nowhere. You feel you have reached a beginning where all was stone, as if rocks rushed to erect this temple, where time does not exist, have a number. Time here is simply here. It does not go anywhere else. It begins and ends here. Time is an anonymous temple in Hampi, where you are never lost. Here, where there is nothing to find except yourself. In this abode of rocks, time was not lost at birth. It was lost later, when Hampi died. Since then, time waits in Hampi for its own return. In Hampi, lost to itself, lost to the world, Hampi waits for you to find it. Its blindness seeks your sight. Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Manish, for these achingly beautiful poems, for giving us these stunning images. The house takes time to leave. It is losing you. The house takes time to know it is losing you. You know, that poetry is like the sea that often arrives from other shores, and we bait poetry like fish, and of stones bleeding myths. Thank you so much. Such amazing, beautiful poems. So from Hampi, Kamakya, Delhi, and the house that knows that you're leaving it, you know, from these metaphors of belonging and loss, we now turn to Nursel Artekin, a Turkish poet. By profession, she is an anesthetologist and is also a master practitioner and teacher of Reiki. Her poems have appeared in numerous print and digital publications. She is also trained in art therapy, and she's a regular Zoom participant in the Sunday World Angora streaming broadcast from Paris. The English versions of her poems have been recited by jazz and blues artist and poet Mo Seeger. So welcome, Nursil. Please read to us your poems. We can't hear you. Please unmute yourself. Nursil, we can't hear you. Can't hear you. You're not audible. I think in the meanwhile, while Nursil finds her voice, uh, we'll move to the next poet. And the poet that I now would like to invite is Reenu Talwar. Reenu Talwar is a freelance writer and poet and translator based in Chandigarh. She writes reviews of books and theatre performances and articles on art and culture for various local and national publications. As a translator, she works in English, Hindi, and French. Her translated work has been published in book form by Penguin India, HarperCollins, and Unbound Script. Her translations of poetry and literature have been published in many literary magazines. She loves translating from English, French, and other languages into Hindi. Many of them are available on her blog, anudit.blogpost.com. She writes poetry in English. I welcome you, Reenu. Please read to us your poems.
Thank you, Vijaya. Thank you so much. And I thank you, Ratiji, for inviting me, and I thank Kritya also. My poems are highly personal. They are the way that I view my work. So, the first poem that I'm going to read is called My Name. It is about when someone close to you writes your name and the feeling that it evokes in you. My name. You write my name again and again and again. Sometimes you begin it with a capital letter, formally, a proper noun. Other times it is all in the lower case, familiar, touchable, intimate. And when you write it in the rounds and curves of the language you dream in, I read it in the goosebumps on my skin. There is no reason for you to write my name, but you still do. You still do. The next poem that I'm reading, it's about how people come together in life and how they part from each other. So feelings that remain in the heart and which bring anguish and when you're leaving someone. So the next poem is Retreat. Know that the scent of musk that had driven you mad came from your own mind. I am retreating from your forest. See how I erase all traces of my presence. The spring flowers are already withering. They will soon be dust. All the trees have new leaves. The old ones are gone. I had begun the preparations a few months ago. It is all planned, believe me, coldly calculated, executed. Even the unseasonal shower that made mud of my footprints. Soon you will see a branch undulating rhythmically. I will have just flown off from there. Finally, farewell. I am retreating from your forest. There is another poem with the same theme of parting. The title is Warning. You are used to Velcro partings, quick pulling away, dramatic words, anger, shock, sullen silences, non-comprehension of expectations, the inexplicableness of it all. There won't be any Velcro moments this time, no accusations, no overflowing of hurt. It will be like putting a child to sleep in his crib, holding him close, arms wrapped tightly as you bend over and lay him down. Staying that way, quiet, barely breathing, extricating one arm, slowly, then the other, slow motion in slow motion, finally tiptoeing out of the room. I will leave you like that.
Very nice.
Then the next poem, it is about how we come back to ourselves, to the center of our being, So, to the center. I try to stay still, to soak in all the equanimity of the day. Last night, my name had rhymed again with ancient mariner, lips caked with thirst, the albatross around my neck, trying to bring me to my knees. And I had felt as powerless as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. Here again, though, is the spring breeze, things moving, growing over winter's rot. A scorching summer lies ahead, but we will swing back here again to the center. The next poem is just about um, waking up early in the morning and when nobody is awake in the house, and the feeling that you get, just one day, one feeling that you get, just before dawn. Just before dawn, the room is dark, curtains drawn against the late autumn chill, and there is no way of knowing that it is just before dawn. Only the sound of my daughter's deep breath as she sleeps next to me, sounding like oars cutting water, moving my boat, taking me forwards. And the last poem that I'm going to read is Jigsaw. How we are all scattered life. We scattered pieces of ourselves in many places, and sometimes we try to find them, and sometimes we don't. We are not able to, and that is how incomplete we can carry on our journey. Jigsaw. Chewy love ballads play in a cheesy pizza joint. The day melts into a hum. Someone says they are flying to a town near yours. My heart almost bursts with unstretched wings. Sitting in this weak sunshine, I clip so much, along with my nails. Meanwhile, there is the angry hiss of acid words, kids huddling closer. There are book lined corridors of libraries, and bare pages fluttering emptiness. A hesitant sun, hesitantly cooing doves, finally lapse back into a wintry silence. Late at night, I will sweep the sleeping house, picking up pieces of myself, trying to piece together the jigsaw, much of which is missing, given up for lost. What is lost appears tantalizingly in dreams. Thank you, that's all.
Amazing poems, memories of unrequited love, jigsaws that cannot be solved, poems of slow motion and the scent of musk. So we move from the spell of these poems back to Nersil Artican. Nersil, are you ready? Okay. Your voice is still, your audio is not coming. Yeah, yeah, I hear some sound now. No, sorry, can't hear you. Please say something. Maybe now I think the audio has probably come back. No, we can't hear you. Can you hear us? Please unmute your mic. Reenu, please mute your mic.
Okay.
Her mic is muted, so she has to unmute, I think.
Please unmute yourself. Narsil, please unmute yourself.
She has muted her. No, she didn't understand what we are asking her. She didn't understand. We cannot unmute her unless she does.
I just sent her a message. I think if she's read it, she would unmute herself.
No, your mic is your mic. Yeah.
Oh no, she's disappeared now. So I think in the meanwhile, maybe we can go to Shelley, and we'll come back to Narsil later. Can you hear us, Narsil? Are you there? No, she's not here. So let me then invite to you another beautiful poet from my city, Chandigarh, Shelly Narang. Shelley is an assistant professor of English in a college in Chandigarh, and she's been teaching here for about a decade. And she publishes poetry regularly in various literary anthologies and journals like Atrium, The Poet Magazine, the Red Wolf Journal, Sahitya, Muse, Thrush, the Yale Review, etc. And her areas of interest are gender studies, South Asian literature, and linguistics. And she's published 2 academic books titled Visible Fears, Invisible Lives, and The Eternal Homelessness in 2018. And her poem Imprints was among those shortlisted for the Moth Poetry Prize in 2020. So Shelley, welcome. Please read to us your poems.
Thank you, Vijaya. I hope I'm audible. Uh, First of all, I'd like to thank Kritya for this absolutely wonderful opportunity that they have given me to recite my poems. also to Rati ma'am and the other organizers. It's really special to be reciting my poems today. So as I had a discussion with Vijaya, I have selected 3 of my poems to read out today. And all 3 have been published in the last 2 years. The first 2 poems in particular were a byproduct of the pandemic that we all went through. Though I would not like to label them pandemic literature or pandemic poems, because I think they are very general meditations in life. And as much as they speak of barrenness, they also speak of opportunities of silence and equipoise. So I'll read my first poem. It's called Numbness. And then the weather turned strange and never got better. And we were forced to wear our hopes later and later at high school graduations, mid June in the rains. These bright commencements of the brightest were shivering while we sat waiting. We would have cheered had we not been holding our masks or holding the white elastic that held them, the tenderly permanent equipoise of decay and perseverance. On most days, we were fear bitten, we were chapped. Soon we sought maps to release us from unseasonal confinement, which became constant. We took our smiles and we spanned the round world's 4 corners for white sands and comfort. But no matter, no avail. Even the grand beaches were far. Then, in those final days, even the blazing views of the crashes and quakes, and all our lives were rendered with wind chilled sameness. We too were growing ever more forlorn, cut to the very bone by continually plummeting skies. It kept expanding across the old world and new. By August, we stood on the shore, back to fire, to ponder the ocean and our work and wonder if it were not some great arbiter of our unwished for, possibly merited fate. We rubbed these thoughts together, for it was all we had left, like the mind's final desperate kindling. Then our hands turned black and blue, and hope again went cold, as our hair filled with salt and rain and fear. That was my first poem. And I think, as much as it applies to the pandemic, it also somehow fits into these war torn scenarios. The second one is quite literally called Hands, and it was the result of a prompt given by Rattle. And it was also born out of my very personal experience of going to my friend's place who lost her mother. But we did not have the opportunity to embrace and express grief much the way we used to earlier. So this one is called Hands. I remember shaking hands, damp, sweaty hands, and dry, coarse hands, bone crushing handshakes, and dead fish handshakes, 2-handed handshakes, my hands sandwiched between a pair of big palms. I remember hairy hands and freckled hands, spotless silk hands and old wrinkled hands, stained hands of hairdressers who had spent the entire day streaking my hair, dirty hands of gardeners who dug down deep into the good earth, hands of gutter cleaners clearing slime during the unstoppable rains, sharing buckets of greasy popcorn, salt sticking to the fingers, the thrill and fear of our hands, accidentally on purpose brushing each other in metros and corridors. The childhood game, my best girlfriend and I facing each other to play a hand clapping game, and the loud, satisfying smack as our 4 palms slapped. I remembered high fives and how we would laugh when we missed and then a do over. I remember the elegant turn of shiny brass doorknobs, cool to the touch. I remember my mother's hands, kneading the dough every day. I remember holding my father's hand, competing with wrists and forearms, elbows firmly placed on the table, while he always pretended to lose. I remember the joy of offering my index finger to a new baby who wrapped it in his fist as we gazed at each other in wonder. I remember salad bars and hot bars. I remember saying, "Want a bite?" and offering a forkful of food from my plate. I remember asking, "Can I have a sip?" and placing my lips on the edge of your cold, frosty glass. I remember passing around the cup, each of us taking a small sip of wine. I remember picking up a serving spoon someone had just put down without giving it a second thought. I remember sitting with a mourner at her home, not saying a word, simply taking her hand in mine. That was my
Beautiful.
second poem.
Very
And
nice.
the last poem, I wanted to break away from the gloom a little bit, and Vijaya made ample references to the scorching Indian summer. And this is one of my poems that was published last year, and it derives from a staple summer drink we all have, at least in our North Indian households, ruafza. And to me, this is not just a delirium of nostalgia and childhood of the 90s, but also I think a metaphor, cultural metaphor for a cultural synthesis that has gone missing today. So this is called ruafza, and it's the whole idea is to just spread some sugared happiness here. It goes like this: I tore a rose from its perch and thumbed with my hands its ruby crusted velvet, with plans to watch its shreds unravel on a table. I readied myself for the cold trace of the florist. Instead, I smelt ruafza, that syrup my dad stirred into iced milk in the summer, turning the banal into something pink and singular in the smallest juice glass, which made the drink sacred. I don't drink milk now. Few stores in the city sell ruafza, but most days I can't even find a bouquet of real roses, the kind I smelled in the earlier times, that made me want to suck the buds and press the petals to my wrists and make their scent my own. I have 3 dozen perfumes, and none of them get it right. I've learned to expect nothing of people, flowers, shrubs, and centerpieces. The roses are sterile, scrubbed of vileness, stand ins for the real thing, which is why just outside my window, I'm shocked to find that honeyed scent again, to be 17 again, tasting ruafza on the back of a stirring spoon. Thank you. These were my poems, and I hope you enjoyed them. Thank you so much.
Very beautiful poems. Thank you so much, Shelley. These are like such amazing, beautiful poems, fragile poems of crystalline depth and
Thank you.
sugar joy. I think that's the word you used to describe your poem on Ruafza. So, Ruafza, of course, the sweet concoction of our childhood, now hardly available anywhere. And rightly so, a lament for the loss of our cultural synthesis. And as you rightly pointed out, the weather of this country and so many other countries has turned strange, and we are forced to wear our hopes later and later. I wish I could shake your hand, and also the hands of all the poets here, later perhaps someday. So now we move to Bengt Berry. Bengt is a poet, writer, and publisher, and he has published more than 40 books, and he's based in Sweden. And his prose and travelogues are from India and Bangladesh and many other countries. The surrounding nature of Bengt's rural home in the forest and lake landscape of where he lives has played an important role in his works. And his travels around the world and encounters with foreign environments and new people has added to his, to the beauty of his poetry. And Bengt has been very happy to collaborate with various visual artists and photographers in books and exhibitions. His poems have been translated into many languages, and he has participated in festivals in many countries. And in recent years, he has been very active in various poetic broadcasts and peace projects. So Bengt will read his poems in Swedish and in English. Welcome, Bengt. Please read to us your poems.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be there, and thank you for inviting me, Rati and Vijaya, and all of you. It's a wonderful session here. And as you said, I am living in the nature, and in this part of the world where I live, we are not so many people, but we have wilderness, we have wolves, bears, and so on. It's yes, it's very far from the big towns and all that. And I will start with a poem about what is happening now. The green grass is coming back. You know, up in the north, in wintertime, we have almost no colors in nature. We have snow, white, and we have gray shades and so on. But now the green and the flowers are coming back. So my first poem is about the green and the grass. The grass is so grass green, so roll around in the green, the grass and the green. That is how we want it. Green grass and nothing more, not only green, not only grass, but green. And then we sang those beautiful songs and the sun didn't set. And never, no, never, we were happier than that. The grass, green on the edge, yes, even inside the edge, the green shone. And greenest of all were the tender aspen leaves, shimmering green, as if there were no shadows in the forest at all. But the shadows were there, the green shadows that almost disappear into the green. So I think you will understand it in Swedish when I read in Swedish, because green is in Swedish grön and grass is gräs. Gräset är så gräsgrönt, så rullande runt i det gröna. Det gräset och det gröna, så ville vi ha det. Inte bara gräs, men grönt. Och så sjöng vi de där vackra sångerna. Och solen gick inte ner. Och aldrig, nej aldrig var vi lyckligare än så. Gräset grönt i kanten. Ja, även innanför kanten lyste det gröna. Och grönast av allt var det späda askbladet, skimrande grönt, som det inte fanns några skuggor i hela skogen. Men skuggorna fanns, gröna skuggor, som nästan försvann i grönskan. Thank you. And my next poem is also a tribute to the Turkish poet Nazım Hikmet, but it's about impressions of the world in many ways. It's called Outlook. The sun straight on, right in, the facades of time, life disappearing inwards, parts of ourselves leave, joints in the body that doesn't belong. Who refuses to know the conditions of tomorrow? Who thinks the troops are always marching the other way? For us, nothing else remains but the days that shaped and shapes, dense loops of language and laughter incorporated into the dreams. We say, see you, without caring if it's the eyes, the tongue, or the heart thinking in us. The sun over the rooftops, straight on, straight in. The shirt bottom has its own history, the hand's movement necessary. Everything can be remembered, the taste of cherries, Nazim Hikmet's poems, an image of loving hedgehogs, unpaid bills, rain dragging over Hungarian poppy fields. The shirt bottom is needed. Autumn is there, as well as Afghanistan and quite different views. It's our feet that determine our field of vision, but the head produces the perspectives. The gaze can lift thoughts into action. Solidarity is the meeting of the brain and the heart outside ourselves.
Very nice.
I have two other poems that are shorter, and I can read them in Swedish after if you want.
Yes,
And
please.
it's from a book called Om världen inte fanns. It means if the world didn't exist. The first poem is called About Time and Space. Reading in the book that time is on its way from two directions at once. The time of our time is an instant, a blink of tenth, a brief encounter, and all is past. In another book I read that the house is round, that the walls on the outside are made of skin, inside of songs that never can be silenced. And in this book there are also photos. So this was about the poem I read, because the first home of for us is in before we are born. It's together with our mother inside. Om tid och rum. Läser i den där boken att tiden är på väg från två håll samtidigt. Vår tids tid är ett ögonblick, en tiondels blinkning, ett kort möte och allt är förbi. I en annan bok läser jag att huset är runt och väggarna utåt består av hud, inåt av sånger som aldrig kan tystna. And so my last poem, called About the Rain. It is the same rain yesterday. New rain falls, some old rain, as all rain. Light, darkness, darkness, light, down towards us on the moss. To comfort, slowly it reaches us, where we stand side by side under the tall tree, the tree we call the tree of life. In that tree, everything is stored between the rings of its leaves, which is the way of the forest to measure time. And inside, in the beautiful fragrance of wood, is you, what was you, and you are with us in the shelter of the rain, the inescapable, the rain. Thank you. It was a rain poem, and I just take the last verse here. I det regnet finns allt lagrat mellan årsringarna som är skogens sätt att mäta tid. Och där inne, i den vackra doften av trä, finns du, det som var du och är du hos oss i skydd av regnet, det ofrånkomliga regnet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bengt. You know, when I was listening to you, and as you were evoking the Swedish landscape, I was reminded of Ingmar Bergman's films. And I was, you know, the sound of Swedish language was so beautiful to the ears. And I was taken back to all those lovely films that, you know, all of us have had I think most of us have had the pleasure of seeing Bergman's films like Wild Strawberries and, you know, The Seventh Seal and so many other beautiful films. Thank you so much for your reading. And it was, you know, so beautiful to hear a sound different than English, you know, that we've been, you know, listening to all along. So thank you for your reading. And now I'm wondering if Nursel's audio is working. No, sorry, we can't hear you. I think this is some kind
You
of
do
an
one
audio
thing, Vijay. You read her poems in English. You have the English
I
translations
have
of
the
her
English
poem.
translations.
So,
Would you
Nursel,
like that? Would you like that, Nursel? Should I read your poems in English translations?
I think her audio is not working at all. So,
Yeah.
it's better you read in English.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so unfortunately, Nursel's audio is not working, and I have the honor and pleasure of reading the translations of our beautiful poems. So the first poem is called Sorrows and Revolution. I'm painted in the color of sad mornings. I'm scattered in a terrible nightmare. I have stayed awake in the bosom of a lyrical poem, while gesturing swallows fly over in the sky. A rainy rose season, nightingales are bitter as if madly in love. I say roses, sir, roses are destitute queens in a greenhouse. I'm sad women in lyrical poems. My mascara paints the night in black. My sad childhood is a snowdrop, seeking the sun in fairy tales, seeking for the dirt of my soul and ordeals and demolishing stories and tales. We pass through a destitute age, like scared deers, unsheathed knives shine in my tears. We are shot in our dreams, oh my ignorant and oppressed people. A salt lake passes through our lives. Lilacs are ambers in dewdrops. My carnation-sleeved poetic dress, why are pains and revolutions sisters? The birds of my sadness whirl, the masters of words, images and lines, Nazim, Neruda, Rilke, Mayakovsky, the rhymes are in rhythm in the Milky Way. The mournful rosebuds are hurt in moonlight, loves are painted in red in the bosom of pansies. My carnation-sleeved poetic dress, why are pains and revolution sisters? So that is one of her poems. The next poem is called Magician. Do not sleep deeply. Do not ruin your eyelids. I stripped your blessed betrayals one by one with a lotus flower. I bleed inside constantly with my tears. My voice is broken finally. The artery cut bleeds time. Wake up. I've become a sad love for the mornings. They shoot loves too in the middle of eyebrows. The magician who gave my love a lifespan. Are you the god? You throw me alive into hellfire. My voice echoes as moon is in ebb and flow. Love turns barn into a palace in my poems. Hayloft becomes home for lovemakers. Yet no one knows, with a needle pin, I dig holes and wake up into purple mornings. Love is a sad river, impossible to swim for those not in love. I was thrown away from heaven with an apple tree and my clothes made of fig leaves. I'm bleeding with time's tears constantly. Bleeding, 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 and remembering. Wake up. I've become a sad love for your mornings. They shoot loves too in the middle of eyebrows. So this was the second poem. The third poem is called Bleeding Story. Your voice fell into a deep well in my soul. In a rosy pensiveness, I live the night. My heart cannot stand your tendency to another heart. You raise deep sorrows in my soul as you go. Moonlight filters through my sadness. I take new sorrows in my arms madly and wind all clocks to a sad longing. Jades in my soul are equal to winds. What we live is a story lived drunkenly. Our love is in a ruby-colored wine bleeding. My clothes are made of sunbeams. They can't be sewn by worn consciousness. Let it be known. And the last poem is called Tears of Poetry. In your heart's glacial fire, sadly blossom the daisies. Which poem would I fit in with my wistful heart? In your unfaithful heart, there are pansies. My own mind does not take my advice. My hopes melt in snowflake stars. I took out from the chest the naphtalic embroidery. Rains fall on my memory. Time's arteries cut. It bleeds. It leaks into turpentine barrels. A pair of cufflinks in your heart. At the gates of grief, I am the poetry's god. Rimbaud's last two lines are torn. I am stitching it with ruby yarn. My heart seeks for you in mossy boulevards. Swallows will bring springs to sun, will bring spring to stone's heart. My talismanic Venus pen will write symphonies. In this universe, stars will clap and dance. So those are the 4 poems by Nusral. So I'm really sorry we could not, your audio was not working and we could not listen to your beautiful voice and, your beautiful language. And these are, what can I say? I mean, these are amazing poems and, drawn from the depth of feelings and emotions. You're a magician of words and, how you bring together ruby yarns and mossy boulevards, talismanic pens and symphonies. So I'm really sorry we couldn't hear you. Now, from mornings and swallows gesturing in the sky and the sad river of love, Let us call another poet to sing to us. And this time I invite Santvana Shrikant. Santvana Shrikant is a dentist. She's a dental surgeon and she writes poetry in Hindi. And, her poems are, they aim to sharpen the bite of women who live on the margins. And her poems have been translated into many languages, have been published in many journals and newspapers, like the Ganga Anchal, Jansatta, Dainik Bhaskar, among others. And she has published a book of poems in Hindi by the name Stri Ka Purusharth. She's also the founder of a popular website, ashrutpurva.com, which is a platform for literature. So finally, from English and Swedish and Turkish, we now move to Hindi. Santvana, you're most welcome. Please read your poems. Please unmute yourself.
नमस्कार विजया जी, आपका धन्यवाद और कृत्या का बहुत धन्यवाद। रीति जी, आपका बहुत धन्यवाद। मेरी वॉइस आ रही है ना?
हाँ, बिल्कुल आ रही है
जी। तो मैं पहली पोएम अपनी पढ़ रही हूँ, अब की बार जो मिलोगे। देन आई विल रीड इट इन इंग्लिश। ओके
ओके।
सो अब की बार जो मिलोगे। मेरी भाषा अलग है, तुम्हारी भाषा अलग है। जम्मू से आती हुई गद्दी जनजातियों की चीखें, लद्दाख की मूक बर्फ से ढकी पहाड़ियों को चीरती आदिवासियों की पीर, दोनों ने ही महसूस किया है। असम में नागरिकता न मिलने का दुख दोनों भाषाओं में एक जैसा ही होता है। राजस्थान के एकाकी मरुस्थल पीठ टिकाए हैं जैसे अरावली पर, ठीक वैसे ही मैं तुम्हारे कंधे पर सिर टिकाए भूल जाना चाहती हूँ बंजर धरती का दर्द। कच्छ के सुर्ख सफेद रेगिस्तान की पीड़ा। कच्छ का जो रेगिस्तान है वो सफेद है, बट जैसे ही सूर्य निकलता है वो लाल हो जाता है। तो कच्छ के सुर्ख सफेद रेगिस्तान की पीड़ा मुझसे होकर तुम तक भी तो आती है। जैसे उल्का पिंड ने जन्मा है सोनार लेक, वैसे ही जन्मना चाहती हूँ मानवता को तुम्हारे आलिंगन से। सुंदरवन के मैंग्रोव जैसे जन्मते हैं सजीव प्रजक, वैसे ही नवजात को जन्म देना चाहती हूँ। जो दुनिया के दलदल में भी बचा पाए अपना अस्तित्व। पश्चिमी तट सुंदरता ओढ़े भूस्खलन की अनिश्चितता में। मैं एक फूल के बारे में बताना चाहती हूँ। नीलकुरुंजिनी एक फूल होता है जो कि 12 वर्ष बाद आता है। तो पश्चिमी तट सुंदरता ओढ़े भूस्खलन की अनिश्चितता में, नीलकुरुंजी की प्रतीक्षा में। देखो मुन्नार के पर्वत जितनी गहरी ताक लगाए हैं, वैसे ही तुम मेरी प्रतीक्षा कर रहे होगे ना। तुम्हारी कामनाओं को लेकर मैं इच्छामती नदी की तरह बहती हुई आऊंगी। अब की बार जो मिलोगे तुम, अरब सागर का सारा नीलापन मेरे माथे पर मिलना। अब की बार जो मिलोगे तुम, अरब सागर का सारा नीलापन मेरे माथे पर मिलना, और मैं सोख लूंगी तुम्हारी उदासियों का खारापन। नाउ आई विल रीड इट इन इंग्लिश। ओके
Okay, please.
So, next time when you meet, my language is different, so is yours. Coming from Jammu, the cries of Gaddi tribes share the hills of Ladakh covered with silent snow. Both feel the pain of ancient inhabitants. Assam and Jammu grieves the same sorrow of not belonging. The lonely desert of Rajasthan, supporting on its back the Aravalli mountain. In the same way, I want to rest my head on your shoulder. The pain of Kutch passes to you through me. The Sonar Lake was born of a star that fell by the wayside. I want in the same way to embrace humanity. As mangroves in the Sundarban birth the living, in the same way I want to bring into existence life. Look at Munnar, waiting for Neelkurunji at the western coast overcast with clouds. In the same way, wait for me. I will come flowing to you like a delirious river. This time when you meet me, bring the entire blue of Arabian Ocean on my forehead, and I will bear it and absorb the saline sadness of youth use.
Very nice.
मैं अपनी नेक्स्ट पोएम फिर से हिंदी में पढ़ूंगी, उसके बाद इंग्लिश ट्रांसलेशन। अगली कविता है सुनो लड़की। सुनो लड़की, शकलें छिपाए और आंखें गड़ाए हुए गिद्ध जैसे निशाना साधे बैठे हैं कई लोग वहां। तुम छुपना मत, आंखें नीची मत करना, दुपट्टा कहीं खिसका तो नहीं इसकी भी परवाह न करना। सिर उठाना और नीची कर देना उनकी आंखें अपने तेज से। ललचाएंगे बहलाएंगे फुसलाएंगे और देंगे धमकियां भी वो। दरअसल ये भेड़िए नहीं गीदड़ हैं। उनकी हवस में गल मत जाना, बेचारी मत बन जाना तुम। सुनो लड़की हिम्मत रखना, क्योंकि फिर भी गलत तुम ही कहलाओगी। चुप रहना, यह नसीहत भी दी जाएगी। तुम्हारा चरित्र धुंधला होगा, यह बतलाया जाएगा। यहाँ तो पौधों को भी बौना रहने पर मजबूर किया जाता है, फिर बॉन्साई बनाकर सजाते हैं। लेकिन सुनो लड़की, तुम समर्पण मत करना। रौंदा जाएगा, कुचला जाएगा, घृणित आंखों से तरेरा जाएगा। फिर भी तुम प्रस्फुटित होती रहना, अंकुरित होती रहना। इतिहास में नाम तुम्हारा ही दर्ज होगा, पूजा भी तुमको जाएगा। लेकिन डर है मुझे कि तुम दम ना तोड़ दो इससे पहले। मालूम है मुझे तुम्हें इतिहास नहीं बनना, तुम्हें पूज्य भी नहीं होना। एक सामान्य जिंदगी चाहिए तुम्हें, दहशत न हो। एक सामान्य जिंदगी चाहिए तुम्हें, जहां दहशत ना हो अपने देह के नोचे जाने की, फिक्र ना हो दबोच कर पर काटे जाने की। जहां खिली रहे तुम्हारी मुस्कुराहट, बिना इस डर के कि तुम्हें चरित्रहीन कहा जाएगा। जहां खिली रहे तुम्हारी मुस्कुराहट, बिना इस डर के कि तुम्हें चरित्रहीन कहा जाएगा। Now I'm reading English translation of this. Listen, girl, face wrapped, eyes gazing. Don't conceal, don't lower your eyes, don't bother. Raise your head and shine. They will call names and threaten you. Don't become weak with kindness. Don't be tempted to heal what cannot be. Girl, listen. Keep hurt. Don't respond to guilt. Keep your sanity. Don't listen to instructions. You will be asked to become less, like a plants are forced to be bonsai. Refuse them their decoration. Listen, girl, don't surrender. You will be trodden, run down. You will be stared at with hateful eyes. Even then, go on, bloom. You should go on. History never was your friend, nor worship. Live a life that is common, where there is no terror, no anxiety, no restricted fight, where your smile may blossom. Now it is finished.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Santvana, for these poems that remind us, what a world of inequality we inhabit, and especially, women. Thank you also for invoking Assam and Jammu and Kashmir in your poems, for bringing out the pain of, not belonging. So from Santvana now, we move to the last poet of this evening, Mahesh Varma. Mahesh Varma is a poet, painter, short story writer, and a translator based in Ambikapuri in Chhattisgarh. And he writes in Hindi and is published in all the important journals of Hindi language. In fact, he's one of the most well-known poets of Hindi language today. And he's also a very well-known painter. His book of poems, Dhul Ki Jagah, was published in 2018. And he has also translated Urdu writer Nayyar Masood's book of short stories in Hindi by the title Ganjifa. And needless to say, his poems have been translated in many national and international languages. Maheshji, you're most welcome. Please read to us your poems.
Thank you. I would like to say thanks to Ratiji, Vijaya, and Kritya. And I will read my poems in Hindi, and Vijaya will read the translations later on. And these poems are translated by my poet friend Samarth Vashisht, So this is the time to say thanks to him also. This is my first poem. ये कविता है मेरे पास. मेरे पास जो तुम्हारा ख्याल है वह तुम्हारे होने का अतिक्रमण कर सकता है. एक चुप्पी जैसे चीरती निकल सकती हो कोलाहल का समुद्र. मैं एक जगह प्रतीक्षा में खड़ा रहा था. मैं एक बार सीढ़ियां चढ़कर वहां पहुंचा था. मैंने बेवजह मरने की सोची थी. मैंने एक बार एक फूल को और एक बार एक तितली के पंख को जमीन से उठाया था. मैं दोपहरों में वैसा ही बेपरवाह रहा था जैसा रातों से. मैं रास्ते बनाता रहा था और मैं रास्ते मिटाता रहा था धूल से और ख्याल में. इन बेमतलब बातों के अंत पर आती रही थी शाम. तुम्हारा एक शब्द मेरे पास है. यह किसी भी रात का सीना छेद सकता है और प्रार्थना घरों को बेचैन कर सकता है. सिवाय अंधेरे के या गुलामी के पट्टे के इसे किसी और चीज से नहीं बदलूंगा. इसे दोहराता हूं कि जैसे मांझ के रखता हूं चमकदार. और दूसरी कविता है क्या थी. वह इतनी सरल बात थी कहने में कि मुझे भाषा की शर्म थी उसे लिखने में. वह पानी थी अपनी सरलता में और हवा थी अपनी पुकार में साफ दिली में. इसके रेशे सुलझे हुए थे होने के कारण भी साफ साफ. अगर दुख थी यह बात तो यह संसार के सबसे सरल आदमी का दुख था. यह भूख थी अगर तो उन लोगों की थी जो मिट्टी के बिस्कुट गढ़ कर दे रहे थे अपने बच्चों को, जो बीच बीच में देख लेते थे आकाश. अगर यह हत्या थी तो यह एक आदिवासी की हत्या थी. यही दो कविताएं हैं मेरी और विजया शायद इसका अंग्रेजी में अनुवाद पढ़ेंगी.
विजय जी आपका माइक म्यूट.
You're
Okay,
muted.
thank.
Vikram.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I have unmuted myself. Thank you so much, Mahesh ji, for these very beautiful poems. And I will now read the translation of these poems in English. What I have. I think someone's mic is on. If you could kindly mute your mics because there's an echo. Okay. Your thought that I could transgress your existence, like silence could cut across an ocean of noise. I had stood in a spot waiting. I had climbed a flight of stairs to reach there without reason. I had once thought of dying. I had once picked up a flower and a butterfly wing from the ground. I had remained as oblivious of afternoons as I had remained of nights. I kept on paving ways and destroying them in dust and in my mind. The evening would get over at the end of these meaningless thoughts. I have a word that you said. It is capable of piercing any night and sowing disquiet in places of worship. I won't trade it for anything other than darkness or a slave's collar. I repeat it as if rubbing it to keep its luster bright. The other poem is called What It Was. It was such a simple thing to say that I felt the hesitation of language in writing it. It was water in its simplicity and the wind in its calling out. In clear-heartedness, its strands were all untangled. The reasons of its occurrence laid bare. If it was grief, it was the grief of the simplest man in the world. If it was hunger, it was the hunger of the people molding biscuits out of clay and handing them out to their children while glancing intermittently at the sky. If it was murder, it was the murder of an aborigine. So those are the poems of Mahesh Varma. Beautiful, delicate, tender poems of, subtle transgressions and silences that cut quietly and deeply. And the heartbreaking image of children cajoled with clay biscuits is impossible to forget. So, as the moderator of this event, I suppose I'm allowed to read a poem or two of my own. So, with your permission, I would like to read 2 poems followed by their translations. And these poems have been very graciously translated from Hindi to English by the eminent Indian English poet K.K. Daruwala. So let me take this opportunity to thank him publicly. Thank you, K.K. sir, for translating these poems. So the first poem that I'm going to read is called Irani Galicha. So I'll read it in Hindi and then I will read it in English. Irani Galicha. ये गलीचा जो फारस के किसी सुंदर बाग की कल्पना है, जिसमें मनमोहक बहुरंगी पक्षी कोई मीठा फल खा रहे हैं, उनकी खुरदरी जीभ और तीखी चोंच पीठ में चुभते हैं। आप घबरा कर उठ बैठते हैं कि कोई धारदार चीज आपकी पीठ को छील रही है। इस तोते का मालिक, वो नफीस कालीन बुनकर, अपनी बूढ़ी उंगलियों से अब भी तेहरान की किसी सकरी गली में बैठा एक बाज की आंख में सितारा जल रहा है। वो नहीं जानता कि उसके कालीन दुनिया भर में तैर रहे हैं, दीवारों पर या कि फर्श पर। उसके रंगीन पक्षी लोगों की पीठ और यादों में चुभते हैं। उसका वो बाज लगता है बस अब उड़ने ही वाला है। उसकी आंख की चमक बताती है उसका शिकार बच नहीं पाएगा उसके तीखे पंजों की गिरफ्त से। उसके कालीन कालीन नहीं तिलिस्म है, जिसमें कैद हैं हम सब अपने मीठे और जहरीले फलों के साथ। ऐसा कोई शनाख्ती लफ्ज नहीं जो हमारे बाहर जाने का रास्ता खोले। I will now read its English translation. Persian Carpet. This carpet is a lovely garden in Shiraz, where birds in colored plumage peck at fruit. Their saw-edged tongue and pointed beaks make inroads on the back. Startled from slumber, I feel a sharp blade slicing my back. The parrot owner comes in, having woven the exquisite carpet, with his aged fingers hunkering down in a black shadowed lane in Tehran, stitching a star in the eye of the hawk. He's not aware that his carpets are known world over, covering walls and floor space, while the colored birds are pecking at memory and his back. His hawk is about to fly. The flash in his eye proclaims that his prey can't escape its sharp talons. This is not a carpet. It is an enchantment in which the poisoned fruits and sweet fruits in which the poisoned and sweet fruits are all jailed. And we all are jailed. And there is no password which can let us out. And there is no password which can let us out. So the other poem that I'm going to read is called Marco Polo की बरसाती. बुखार में जब बदन तपता है और गले से आवाज नहीं निकलती, तुम बहुत याद आते हो मार्को पोलो। याद आता है तुम्हारा छोटा सा कमरा, जहां से दिखता है पूरा शहर किसी लघु चित्र सा, सपाट, चपटा, बिना परिप्रेक्ष्य के, एक के ऊपर एक लदे घर, बेरंगे बेढंगे, मरियल सा पीला चर्च, कांधे पर उठाए सलीब, वो कश्मीरी नौजवान जिसका फटा फिरन बार बार लोगों के पैरों के नीचे आता, हाथ ठंडे, त्वचा शुष्क, बाल लंबे बेतरतीब, दर्द सिर में, दांत में, दिल में। किन शहरों बिहरों से लौटे हो जहां नहीं है हज्जाम, नहीं है सुकून की कोई भी सराय। स्वप्न और सत्य के बीच किस टापू पर रुकी है तुम्हारी नाव, किस ओर की हवा का है इंतजार, कैसे करते हो तय किस ओर है जाना, क्या सिक्का उछाल कर। Now let me read the translation of this poem. Marco Polo's Shack. When fever strikes me down and the inflamed throat does not permit a sound to go through it, memory gets stuck on you, Marco Polo. I remember your small room, lost in the innards of stone, from where you saw the city entire, like a miniature painting, flat without perspective or depth. Buildings, hugger-mugger atop each other, raw, unpainted, the church a fevered yellow, and shoulder-borne the cross, the Kashmiri youth in his tattered ferran, which gets tangled underfoot, hands cold, hair disheveled, pain in head and heart. From which habitat at the edge of wilderness have you returned, where there is no sarai, no barber, this space between dream and reality? On which bank has your boat stalled? What gust of breeze are you awaiting? How do you decide which way to turn? Do you toss a coin? So, thank you very much. So this brings us to the end of this poetry reading session today. And I hope that, all our viewers felt that their time was well spent. And I thank all the poets who read their beautiful poems, beautiful and mesmerizing poems today. And I thank World Poetry Movement and Ratiji of Kritya for organizing this reading, and Brijesh Singh for lending all the technical support, and Edina Berna, a poet and designer from Hungary, for designing the beautiful poster of this event. And if Ratiji is here, may I invite her to sort of say a few words before we depart from this lovely gathering? Ratiji, are you there?
विजय जी उनका नेट थोड़ा काम नहीं कर रहा है, तो आप कंक्लूड कीजिएगा प्लीज।
ठीक है, so I think I have said what I had to say. So thank you very much, everyone, once again, for your beautiful presence and for your beautiful readings. And I'm sure our viewers enjoyed this session very much. So thank you, and hope to meet you all in person and shake hands. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.